Imagine a policy mistake so colossal, it echoes for almost a century. Jeremy Siegel, a Wharton professor, calls Trump's tariffs the biggest policy mistake in 95 years. He compares them to the disastrous Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. Siegel warns these tariffs deeply wound the global economy. He argues they show a fundamental misunderstanding of modern trade. To understand Siegel's warning, we need to rewind to 1930. The world was in the grip of the Great Depression. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act was signed into law. It raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. The result was catastrophic, triggering a global trade war. Other countries retaliated, crippling international trade. Global trade plummeted, businesses collapsed, and unemployment soared. The world economy spiraled further into depression. Siegel sees chilling parallels between the Smoot-Hawley Act and Trump's tariffs. Both were enacted to protect domestic industries. Both triggered retaliatory measures from trading partners. And both, Siegel argues, harmed the economies they aimed to protect. The specter of the Great Depression looms over Siegel's analysis. He fears Trump's tariffs could trigger a similar downward spiral. The global economy is far more integrated today, making the potential consequences even more severe. In 2018, President Trump embarked on a controversial trade policy, slapping tariffs on goods from several countries, most notably China. These tariffs, he argued, were necessary to protect American jobs and reduce the trade deficit. Trump's tariffs were not mere saber-rattling. They were a full-blown assault on the global trading system. He imposed a 10% baseline tariff on almost all imports, with specific tariffs targeting key industries. China bore the brunt of these tariffs, facing a hefty 25% levy on goods worth billions of dollars. These tariffs were not confined to China. Trump also targeted allies like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, imposing tariffs on steel, aluminum, and other goods. His justification varied, ranging from national security concerns to accusations of unfair trade practices. The Trump administration's approach to trade was confrontational and unpredictable. Negotiations were often conducted through Twitter pronouncements and sudden policy shifts, creating uncertainty and volatility in global markets. Trump's tariffs were met with a mixture of condemnation and resignation. Businesses complained about rising costs and disrupted supply chains. Economists warned of the dangers of a trade war, yet Trump remained undeterred, convinced that his hardline stance would ultimately benefit the American economy. China refused to be a passive target in Trump's trade war. In a tit-for-tat response, Beijing imposed retaliatory tariffs on a range of American goods, from soybeans to automobiles. These tariffs were carefully calibrated to inflict maximum pain on industries located in states crucial to Trump's political base. The trade war escalated rapidly, with both sides raising tariffs and expanding the list of targeted goods. The rhetoric grew increasingly heated, with accusations of currency manipulation, intellectual property theft, and unfair trade practices flying back and forth. The impact of these tit-for-tat tariffs was felt far beyond the shores of the US and China. Global supply chains, intricately woven over decades of globalization, were disrupted. Businesses around the world faced uncertainty and rising costs, forcing them to raise prices, delay investments, or even lay off workers. The trade war between the world's two largest economies cast a long shadow over the global economy. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, warned that the tariffs were a threat to global growth, while the World Trade Organization, WTO, expressed concern about the escalating trade tensions. Section 5. Market Mayhem, the downturn fueled by trade wars. As the trade war between the United States and China intensified, global financial markets reacted with predictable alarm. Stock markets around the world experienced sharp declines, reflecting investor anxiety about the escalating trade tensions and their potential impact on global growth. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a key barometer of American stock market performance, experienced significant volatility, with sharp swings both up and down. The technology-heavy Nasdaq Composite Index, home to many companies heavily reliant on global trade, also suffered substantial losses. The uncertainty generated by the trade war had a chilling effect on business investment. Companies were hesitant to make long-term commitments in such a volatile environment, leading to a slowdown in capital expenditures and hiring. This slowdown further dampened economic growth, creating a vicious cycle of uncertainty and decline. The trade war also contributed to increased volatility in currency markets. The value of the Chinese yuan fluctuated sharply as investors reacted to news and rumors about the trade negotiations. This volatility added another layer of complexity for businesses operating across borders, making it more difficult to plan and invest. Section 6. Recession on the horizon? The economic fallout of Trump's tariffs. Jeremy Siegel's greatest fear is that Trump's tariffs could tip the global economy into recession. He argues that the tariffs, combined with other economic headwinds, have significantly increased the risk of a downturn. The uncertainty generated by the trade war, he believes, is already having a chilling effect on business investment and consumer spending. Siegel points to several warning signs that suggest a recession may be looming. Manufacturing activity, a key indicator of economic health, has slowed in many countries, including the United States. Consumer confidence, a measure of consumer sentiment about the economy, has also weakened, suggesting that households may be pulling back on spending. The trade war has also contributed to rising inflation, as tariffs on imported goods have pushed up prices for businesses and consumers. This inflation has eroded consumer purchasing power, further weighing on economic growth. Siegel argues that the longer the trade war drags on, the greater the risk of a recession. He believes that the Trump administration's approach to trade has been counterproductive, damaging the United States economy and undermining global economic stability. Section 7. The Fed's Dilemma, Navigating the Choppy Waters of Trade Uncertainty. The Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, faced a difficult balancing act as the trade war unfolded. The Fed's mandate is to promote maximum employment and stable prices. However, the trade war created a challenging environment for the central bank, as it grappled with the conflicting pressures of slowing economic growth and rising inflation. On the one hand, the trade war's negative impact on economic growth argued for lower interest rates, which could stimulate investment and spending. On the other hand, the tariffs' contribution to inflation suggested that higher interest rates might be necessary to keep price increases in check. The Fed initially responded to the trade war by raising interest rates, seeking to preempt a potential surge in inflation. However, as the economic outlook darkened, the central bank reversed course, cutting interest rates to support economic growth. The Fed's actions highlight the difficult trade-offs policymakers faced as they navigated the uncertain economic terrain created by the trade war. The central bank's response was a delicate balancing act, seeking to support economic growth while also containing inflation. Section 8. Shifting Sands of Policy, from Trump's trade wars to Biden's review. The Biden administration, which took office in 2021, inherited the trade war and its economic fallout. President Biden pledged to take a more measured and predictable approach to trade policy, emphasizing multilateralism and diplomacy over Trump's unilateralism and confrontation. However, the Biden administration has been cautious about making any abrupt changes to Trump's tariffs. The new administration has initiated a comprehensive review of U.S. trade policy, including the tariffs imposed by the previous administration. This review is intended to assess the impact of the tariffs on the U.S. economy, American workers and consumers. The Biden administration has also engaged in discussions with China and other trading partners, seeking to de-escalate trade tensions and find common ground. However, these discussions have been delicate, as the U.S. seeks to address long-standing concerns about China's trade practices, while also avoiding a resumption of the trade war. The Biden administration's approach to trade policy represents a significant departure from the Trump era. However, it remains to be seen how quickly and effectively the new administration can unwind the damage caused by the trade war and restore stability to the global trading system. Section 9. A chorus of dissent. Economists and experts sound the alarm on tariffs. Jeremy Siegel is not alone in his criticism of Trump's tariffs. A chorus of economists, trade experts, and business leaders have voiced their concerns about the tariffs' negative impact on the U.S. and global economies. The consensus among economists is that tariffs are a form of self-inflicted economic harm. They raise prices for consumers, hurt businesses that rely on imports, and distort markets, leading to inefficiencies and reduced economic growth. Trade experts argue that tariffs undermine the rules-based trading system that has underpinned global economic growth for decades. They warn that the tariffs could lead to a spiral of protectionism, as other countries retaliate with their own trade barriers. Business leaders have also expressed their opposition to the tariffs, arguing that they increase costs, disrupt supply chains and create uncertainty, making it difficult to plan and invest. Many businesses have been forced to raise prices, absorb higher costs, or delay investments as a result of the tariffs. Section 10. The Legacy of Trump's Tariffs, a cautionary tale for future trade policy. The Trump administration's trade war left a lasting legacy on the global economy. Higher prices, disrupted supply chains, and lingering uncertainty remain. The trade war highlighted the interconnectedness of the global economy. Trade wars are not easily won, and their costs are borne by businesses and consumers alike. The importance of a rules-based trading system is underscored. The World Trade Organization remains vital for resolving trade disputes. The legacy of Trump's tariffs serves as a cautionary tale. Future trade policies should promote open markets and fair competition. Cooperation and dialogue are the keys to shared prosperity.